In today and hashtag 039's video, we will discuss a woman who achieved the pinnacle of human achievement, yet endured unimaginable hardships throughout her life. Watch this movie to find out about the king or queen who was surprised and forced to kneel before an unexpected visitor. Get ready to be captivated as we delve into the heartbreaking life of Sarah Ferguson in this video. At the video and hashtag 039's conclusion, it will all become clear to you when you know why. Sarah Ferguson was born into affluence. Her father, Major Ronald Ebert Ferguson, managed the Prince of Wales and hashtag 039's polo team. The job may not sound very exciting, but consider that he was unpaid the entire time, yet he managed to provide a lavish lifestyle for his family. Dumbarton Farm, an 800-acre estate, was her home as a child, and she had no financial difficulties as a result. In Hampshire, the county most renowned as the birthplace of Jane Austen, she benefited from her family and hashtag 039's wealth to attend prestigious private schools like Hurst Lodge and Danes Hill. Neither her family and hashtag 039's wealth nor her social circle were the highlights of her childhood. The value of humility and the significance of being grounded were both emphasized to her by her father and hashtag 039's teachings. Remember that the kitchen is more essential than the dining room table. That was her father and hashtag 039's frequent mantra, according to the interview she gave to the Financial Times. It seemed like every member of the upper class was compelled to traumatize their children. Like most other couples, the Fergusons chose to split up when she was 13 years old. When Susan Barentez, Sarah and hashtag 039's mother, abandoned Sarah in England to be with an Argentine polo player, she was the first to stand up. Furthermore, her sister also relocated to Australia, and her father and she were suddenly on her own. She thought it was great, but since they were apart, he had grown emotionally distant. While her father was away, Sarah ran the household and made preparations for a family that did not exist. During her interview with the Financial Times, she also informed us of this. At the age of 13, my sister moved to Australia, and I was made the head of the household. I was the only child since my depressed father spent all of his time at the polo field and on the horse. Is it feasible for you to live there? So, allow us to inform you about it. That was just the beginning of the torment she endured. Ferguson finally came clean about her mother and hashtag 039's abuse when she was a little girl in the 2011 documentary Finding Sarah. The memory of her mother hitting her when she was a little girl because she wooed and hashtag 039's sit up straight on the potty is still fresh in her mind. Her mom was going to turn demonic. Then a vein would appear on the forehead of the young Sarah. Her mother had the audacity to call this trait a devil and hashtag 039's sign. What a devastating impact this kind of treatment would have on a young child. If Sarah hadn't and hashtag 039's been such a brave girl, she probably would have resorted to some horrible means to get out of here. Sarah eventually came to feel useless, unlovable, and worthless as a result of her mother and hashtag 039's abuse and her abandonment for her lover. Unfortunately, her father had isolated himself with horses and polo following their divorce, leaving her with no one to lean on during this difficult emotional period. Thus, requesting his assistance would be analogous to requesting the cat to protect the milk. Ferguson became emotionally unstable and mentally disturbed as a result of these early traumas. She had to take action in a world where her value was absolutely incomparable to that of a horse. Either she might cry a lot or have a tantrum. It was sad, though, what she did. She repressed her thoughts and swallowed her words. Eventually, she made a very alarming statement in an interview while discussing the impact of these events on her subsequent life. She confided in us throughout our interviews that she had long struggled with low self-esteem, which she attributed to her troubled upbringing. My parents instilled in me the importance of remaining silent and never saying anything. As a result, she eventually became more reserved. Managed to conceal her emotions. More issues arose in her life as a result of her appearing overly stoic. Sarah had to make a change when she was a teenager because she recognized her life was completely abnormal. She tried to forge her own path in life, far from her family. She landed a job in publishing and, for a while, lived a rather low-key existence, out of the limelight. Unfortunately, her plans were falling flat on their faces. It would seem. The revelation that she was seeing Prince Andrew, Duke of York, thrust her into the royal spotlight at the age of 26, and her life was never the same. No matter what, the British nobility would not stand for this. Because of this, she became a target for the media and #039's attention and eventually became meat for their canines. She had nothing good to say about the media, and they felt the same way. She was incredibly charismatic and had a blazing red hair color. As a result, Fergie was rapidly stereotyped as an ecstatic party animal. The media depicted someone with her level of enthusiasm and energy as a tornado of mayhem. Because of this, she felt profoundly misunderstood, and she was vexed about it. What can one individual do when confronted with a horde of cameras? She made repeated attempts to control her public image. She had once said to People magazine, and #039, when you have a sense of humor in you and #039, re a redhead, and #039, everyone takes you for a big hurricane, and #039, however, being the storm ISN and #039, always what you want. Her life continued to spiral downwards after she had ascended the social ladder from commoner to royal, despite the fact that she was not born into royalty, which was meant to earn the respect of the people. She had been leading a regular, happy life just a few months earlier, but suddenly the weight of the kingdom and #039's expectations was pressing down on her, and the only thing that came out of being crowned a princess was scorn and derision. That became an enormous weight to bear. It got so bad that people were referring to Diana as the "people princess" and the "Princess of Wales," while Fergie was given the title of "Duchess of Pork," a moniker that the media began to use to bully her. And #039, I had major mental health problems because of the trauma, and #039, Sarah went on to say that her love engagement with Prince Andrew was the catalyst for the bullying and scorn that plagued her life. Princess Diana and #039's matchmaking efforts brought them back together in 1985 at Royal Ascot, after meeting as children. Prince Andrew proposed to Sarah on February 19, 1986, at Flora and #039's castle in Scotland. Later that year, on July 23, 1986, they were married. Sarah was now an official member of the British royal family. They began dating that summer and their relationship progressed rapidly. After the famous kiss on the balcony of Buckingham Palace, the newlyweds went on a romantic honeymoon to the Azores Islands. Sarah was taken aback to realize that this reality was nothing like the fairy tale she had read about. It was reality, and a very harsh one at that. This wedding, which was extravagant even by royal standards, marked the beginning of a very controversial period in her life, which she would regret forever. What were your expectations of the couple? Did you believe that she would remain married to her handsome prince forever? We and #039'll find out if you were correct. Some unseen events began to unfold shortly after the wedding and honeymoon. Andrew was enlisted in the Royal Navy, and after the birth of their first daughter, Princess Beatrice, he was granted just 10 days of shore leave before being called back to his duties. This was a very painful thing, and Ferguson later described the experience to Harper and #039's Bazaar as socially isolating. Andrew was granted 10 days of shore leave upon the birth of Beatrice. When he departed and I wept, everyone told me to grow up and get a grip, it and #039's unfortunate that such inhumane treatment was prevalent within the palace walls, but it was nonetheless common. As the gulf between Ferguson and Andrew widened, the press was eager to cover their every move. In the early 1990s, rumors started circulating about their extramarital affairs. Ferguson quickly found herself embroiled in multiple scandals. Things took a turn for the worse when a photo of her on vacation with her financial advisor, John Bryan, surfaced. In the photo, Bryan was seen seemingly sucking on Ferguson and #039's toe. Report after report, press release after press release. The media was having a field day and they weren't and #039 going to waste such a golden opportunity. As if that weren't and #039 enough, rumors also started circulating at the same time about an affair between Ferguson and an American businessman called Steve Wyatt. Because of this, her character was publicly discredited, and she was thereafter proclaimed the Duchess of the Pork in perpetuity. The final straw was when she admitted in an interview with Rosie magazine, and quote, "I had out of control debts, an out of control lifestyle that I couldn't and hashtag 039 T keep up anymore," end quote. This proved that she had no financial awareness and that the problems had spiraled out of control. "My marriage was in shambles, and I had a nervous breakdown on top of it." The Duke and Duchess of York officially separated in 1992 after a 6-year marriage, and they divorced in 1996. Despite this, Ferguson stayed close to Andrew, and they were often seen co-parenting their 2 daughters, Princess Beatrice and Princess Eugenie. It was not her marriage to Andrew that made Sarah Ferguson famous, rather, it was the unique relationship she had with Princess Diana, Princess of Wales. This was a complex part of Sarah Ferguson and hashtag 039's royal existence, since the 2 women had a link over the challenges of being a princess. Diana and Ferguson had known each other since childhood, and their paths had now crossed again when Ferguson married Prince Andrew. Both women had to confront their greatest enemy, the media. Without each other, they often found each other and relied on each other for support. Personal issues added another layer of complexity to their relationship. They were very close, and Ferguson thought of Diana as one of the few friends she could truly call her own. She spoke highly of Diana, saying that Diana had helped her understand and cope with her worst moments. However, their friendship was shattered by the interference of royal politics, since Diana was a higher-ranking royal as the Princess of Wales. There were numerous occasions in their lives when they were on the verge of becoming enemies. She disclosed that Diana once severed communication with her for a while over an insignificant comment Ferguson had made in her autobiography, and she was not pleased about this. All things considered, these were the mundane details of royal life. However, Ferguson has consistently claimed that Diana was one of her closest friends. Following Diana and hashtag 039's untimely death in 1997, Ferguson lost it and couldn't and hashtag 039T control her emotions. She expressed, not in a royal but in a human way, but. In an interview with Metro before Princess Diana and hashtag 039's passing, Ferguson revealed, end quote, "She and I were the only 2 who understood what it was like back in the 80s, end quote." She went on to say, end quote, and hashtag 039, "She was my best friend, and hashtag 039, end quote, as she mourned the loss of one of her only companions. There was tremendous pressure. It and hashtag 039, it's easy to see why these 2 ladies of high society would seek solace in one another and hashtag 039's company, but the inherent jealousy and rivalry in royal households led to constant bickering. What in hashtag 039's even more perplexing is that we have no idea whether they actually fought or not. The media always painted a different picture." End quote. They ignored this media propaganda for a long time and enjoyed their company together. Unfortunately, in the end, the media won, end quote, Ferguson said in an interview with People, adding that the public and hashtag 039's perception of them was complicated because the media adeptly portrayed their relationship as rivals, which would sell better than their friendship. Their friendship was shattered by the never-ending drama and speculation. By the time of Princess Diana and hashtag 039's tragic death in 1997, they had severed all communication. It was a devastating blow to Ferguson, who had never had much in life, to lose her closest friends at the hands of the media and the royal families. It is also true that Ferguson has a lasting regret, and she criticizes herself deeply for not making amends with Diana and helping her through the crisis. This is proven by her statements made after the accident. "It was strange to be on good terms with your ex-husband, especially if your relationship ended on bad terms like Sarah and Andrew and hashtag 039's. But there are a few things you need to know about Ferguson. I love Diana and will always love her." Ferguson and hashtag 039's life was full of scandals, all caused by the unwanted attention she received from the media. The couple and hashtag 039's continued closeness to Prince Andrew following their 1996 divorce stunned onlookers, yet they have stayed together as co-parents of their kids. Despite their split, Princess Beatrice and Princess Eugenie remained living together for a long time. In an interview with The Telegraph, Ferguson explained that the couple and hashtag 039's partnership was built on empathy, open dialogue, and compromise. When speculation began about a possible remarriage, Ferguson shot it down, saying, end quote, and hashtag 039, "We always say we are the most contented divorced couple in the world." End quote, and hashtag 039, "We and hashtag 039, re-divorced from each other. Separate from one another." The story we just shared with you in quote, and hashtag 039, can and hashtag 039, to be called a scandal, and hashtag 039, end quote, but the one we and hashtag 039, about to reveal in quote, and hashtag 039, will blow up your minds, and hashtag 039, end quote. In 2010, she was embroiled in one of her most infamous scandals. During the incident where she was caught on tape trying to bribe a reporter from the now-defunct News of the World tabloid. The reporter, posing as a businessman, filmed Ferguson offering Prince Andrew access to her for £500,000. It appears that Ferguson said, end quote, that opens up everything you would ever wish for, end quote, in the video. And hashtag 039, if you take care of me, he will take care of you, and hashtag 039, I can open any door you ask of me, and I will. It will be returned to you tenfold. Ferguson attempted to elicit sympathy by publicly apologizing and stating, end quote, and hashtag 039, I very deeply regret the situation and the embarrassment caused, and hashtag 039, end quote. This was the beginning of her collapse, and from that point on, no one would support her justice efforts. For the second time in as many years, the first being the notorious toe-sucking scandal involving her financial advisor, John Bryan, a few years ago, the royal family and hashtag 039's faith in her abilities was utterly dashed, and she had demonstrated that she was the worthless duchess. Despite the fact that her relationship with Prince Philip became increasingly unstable, Prince Andrew continued to receive Ferguson and hashtag 039's support, and she was barred from attending important royal events such as Prince William and Kate Middleton and hashtag 039's 2011 wedding, proving that the royal families despised her. Despite Prince Andrew and hashtag 039's involvement in the sexual assault controversy involving his relationship with Jeffrey Epstein, Ferguson has relentlessly stood by him, telling the co-parents that they are united no matter what. This was stated in an interview with People. He is a wonderful father to the girls, and I think he and hashtag 039's a nice man overall. Many people respected her devotion to the royal family, but most people ignored her statement because the charges against Prince Andrew were too serious to be dismissed so easily. Sarah Ferguson endured a lot of pain throughout her life, but she supposedly found some relief in her 60s.